It was fun. It was definitely different because a lot of my prep for the game was a little bit less basketball than I normally do if I'm going to sideline a game. And it was more so about trying to like amplify this cause on broadcast, which was neat. I haven't been a part of a lot of broadcasts. I've really leaned into that. So I had two stories. We got a dog on TV. I told the dog story. It was just fun. Like, what a nice little switch up to do as a sideline reporter. It was such a good game. I loved it.
That's awesome. I'm just so curious because that game, correct me if I'm wrong, you had like a 24-hour window to kind of prep.
Yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, I've seen you prep games before. Normally, it's like a week, if not way more than that, to really
Yeah.
do your research and prep. So, if you have 24 hours to prep for a game, like what are you doing in those 24 hours to get ready for a broadcast?
Yeah, so I was a last minute fill-in. Granted, the huge thing that I was coming in with is that I have called 3 USF games this season. So been in the booth and been the color analyst. So I like was over the hump of pronunciations, knowing who the starters are, honestly knowing the whole roster, and Coach Fernandez like knowing who I am, which was big time. Also from there, knowing that it was like a dog adoption game and that like my assignment was a little bit different than normal also took a big pressure off. But the big thing that I usually do if I'm working a game super last minute like that is I'm just trying to get a sense of like the trends of the team. So I went back, read through the game recaps, watch the post game press conferences for USF and Temple. That's who they were playing. Because I'm just, as a sideline reporter too, I like to come in with a lot, but if I'm on a tight deadline, I want to know that I'm coming in with some strong stories and things that maybe are a little bit more gimme than usual. I don't have the time to pull out the crazy nugget that I found from 2012 on somebody's Instagram. That's out the window. So we're just trying to tell really good in-game and relevant stories. And, if I'm ever in that pickle, the thing that I know is I'm going to have to work that sideline hard. I'm going to need to be in the huddle, timeouts. I need to immediately get my butt over there and listen because what I might not have in prep, I'm going to make up for in being the eyes and ears of the broadcast. So I had a lot more huddle hits than I normally do versus my pre-planned hits. So that's usually
That's
my big piece of advice.
that's interesting that you refer to the sideline reporter as the eyes and ears of the broadcast.
Yeah, I mean, you're the only person who is really hearing and seeing things in real time like that. Um, and it can be so much bigger than like injury reports, right? Because a lot of people associate sideline with injury reports, which is a good role for you to have. But the layer that you can add on to it is who was the first player that came up and hugged them after that player got injured? What did the team's faces look like? How did people react? Like that is what takes you from well, so and so is out indefinitely. It looked like something happened with their lower right ankle. Like, yeah, I probably could have seen that too if I was watching the game from home. But, did one of their teammates look super upset? Did someone off the bench, did coach have a one-on-one conversation with the person coming off the bench? Like, that is when you are elevating what it means to be a sideline reporter. And that's what I mean by eyes and ears. You can see and hear things that nobody else can, which is, a privilege, and you should use it.
I'm curious when you were talking a little bit more about the research that maybe you would do if you had more time stalking somebody's Instagram. Like, do you really stalk someone's Instagram before a game, like, or the Instagrams of players or coaches, like, to find little pieces that kind of and try to tie things together? Like, to what extent, like, if you had unlimited amount of time, like, what are some of those things? Like, how deep does it really go?
It just depends. I mean, sometimes it helps if there's someone that I know that we want to talk about. For example, when I was doing UAB versus Charlotte, Coach Trent Dilfer, who was the head coach of UAB, he would regularly post on Instagram about his shoes. And every week they were tied to a cause. And that's because he was an NFL player and did My Cause, My Cleats. Did that make it on air? No. Could it have? Maybe. Like you don't know where a game's going to go. So you like to have stuff like that. I will say one of my favorite reports, this was years ago. Holly Rowe has a tendency to pay attention to what is on players' lock screen. And she had done a story about a player who their lock screen was a game they had lost the previous season. And her whole story was about how this player had to look at that every day. And I have never, obviously, never forgotten that and just gone, wow, like, what great context to give to something that could be real general as, that game's really hung with them for the past year. Sure, I'm sure it has. But to say it's been their lock screen for 365 days, that is when you are digging, and really getting good stuff. So it's kind of hit or miss. Sometimes I get good stuff from social and things like that, and sometimes I don't. But I always try and take a good look.
Hey, thanks for watching this clip. For more on sports media and working in the industry, subscribe to the How to Cook a Goose podcast.